Señoras y señores, muy buenos días. Muchísimas gracias por ser.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention and for your participation in this session. We will tackle an issue that, in my opinion, is crucial, and I think it could be really profitable for your different organizations. Communication. Communication is the ability to communicate when we talk in front of people in different meetings, and also it could be understood as the capacity of communicate when it comes to businesses. It's a pleasure for me to share this forum with qualified professionals as you, representatives of this powerful sector, which is cybersecurity. I'd like to begin with by saying that, unfortunately, in many professions, in many different sectors of the Spanish domain, even if we can have technical expertise and several qualifications, from a communication point of view, we do not keep up to the expectations of different professions from other countries. I'm sure you had the opportunity to see it with your own eyes when you attended international congresses and conferences, didn't you? We have a congenital weakness when it comes to communication in Spain. Spanish people are extrovert when we communicate, but we lack abilities and we lack resources because our upbringing, our education didn't focus on these abilities. Even if you studied journalism, I'm betting that most of you didn't have the chance to do oral exams, because we have an education system in which the teacher conveys knowledge on a written page, and everything is written. Teachers were conveying this knowledge orally, but the exams were always written in Spain, and this is why we didn't train speakers. From a journalist's point of view, cybersecurity is an emerging sector. It's a solid and increasing sector, and some statistics indicate that this will increase by 8 or 10% this year. And I think that it's a divided sector with many different organizations. It's a fragmented sector, and we have competitors. And in this sense, I'd like to say to you that communication and the capacity to be different from other organizations is an opportunity. Of course, there are many different elements, the prices of the services we provide, but to defend those prices, to defend those services we provide, and to be able to present our offers and supply to the market, we have to use communication. So in such a fragmented market, communication is a competitive advantage. Allow me, please, to ask you something. Out of those of you who are attending this session today, who of you had the opportunity to do an interview or to be part of the information in which your name and your company have been mentioned? Who of you have been there? We are some 100 people here, and I'm seeing 6 or 7 hands here. So there is a big chance here. And why do we have to be in means of communication? Because, in my opinion, this is the chance that you can have to create a better reputation and to add value to the brands you're working with. This is the most important thing. And in the second place, it's also useful to give visibility to your sector and to have an impact on the market. We've seen along this morning the word raising awareness campaigns. We have to raise awareness in the public so that citizens understand that we're facing some threats, some cyber threats that we have to protect from. And we can do this through mass media. So this is why today I'd like to share with you some insight about how we can use communication to conquer, in a way, in a more efficient way the different markets. An efficient communication is the possibility that allows us to improve the productivity of our organizations. Even if we are only 3 people, 5 or 25 or 100 people in our businesses, communication is directly linked to productivity. If we are able to communicate, for example, the business objectives of a quarter, and to align all of the staff with those goals, with these objectives, we're being productive. If we're able to organize meetings that can last, who knows, 30 minutes instead of 1.5 hours, we will be productive. If we're able to actually keep up to the time that has been granted to us, we will be productive because the communication efficiency is profitable. I was saying before that another element of this efficient communication is competitiveness. This is essential. Daniel Madrid was saying this before. He was talking about risks and the challenges of this sector has in attracting talent. How will you persuade and convince a person to join our team? Or how will we try to convince somebody else that's in another company? Will we do this via a telegram? No, via a meeting with a planned meeting. So the persuasion capacity is profitable. In the labor realm, we were thinking this morning about salaries, because salaries and benefits in a company are essential. And I would like to talk to you about the emotional salary. We not only work for money. We're not motivated only by the salary, only by this. We do not change companies only because of the money, because at the end of the day, we have to have an ecosystem. We have to have a good labor environment in which we feel valued. And actually, in Spain, we tend not to congratulate people who are doing a great job. So communication is useful to attract talent and to create a positive working environment. And in this global context,
communication is decisive to conquer other markets. Most probably you have already internationalized your companies or are in the process of internationalization. And I can assure you that when you move countries, when you go somewhere else, rules are different. If you have to speak in front of a North American or Anglo-Saxon audience, I can tell you that generally speaking, the level of communication is higher. At our institute, we've had the chance of working with executives, with managers that wanted to lead a certain project in North America, and we've talked with them about how that change was perceived by them. And they all say that they have a higher communication level in other countries, in the States, for example. And I have witnessed myself during meetings with British people, if the meeting is scheduled to last for 30 minutes, after 30 minutes, they will very politely let you know that the meeting is over because 30 minutes have passed by. We can spend hours and hours in that meeting and never finish it because we don't have that sense of efficiency with regards to time. I've also worked with a multinational corporation, an investment company, and we've worked with their CEO. And in a 20-minute meeting, this person, the CEO, what he does, he talks to people trying to improve or to gain the loyalty of a customer, of an investor. He's risking up to 100 million euros in 20 minutes. We talked to him, and he said, I'm an economist. I'm an experienced, solid economist. I speak English. I know the market well. My company is one of the leaders in this sector, and I know the market very well. However, in those 20 minutes that my meetings last, I don't have enough tools to perform my job efficiently or effectively. It's not about the knowledge, it's about skills. And so we worked with him in many sessions, and we worked on organizing content. He knew this very well, explaining the results, the future plans for the organization. But we also worked the emotional aspect of it, persuading, convincing, and generating three things: trust, credibility, and leadership. Trust, credibility, and leadership. That's what we should convey when we're having an internal and external communication events. After these meetings, I had the chance to talk to him again, and I asked him, do you think that whenever one of the investors that you work with has to choose between keep on investing on your company or investing on a different company similar to yours from the same sector with similar stock market results, do you think that in those cases the personal element, the emotional element, and your persuasion skills have anything to do with their decision, will influence his decision? And he said, absolutely yes. Citizens, individuals, don't only buy things or contract services because they're the cheapest. It's not just about that. It's also about credibility, trust, and leadership. We also work with sales teams. And very often I tell them, do you have the feeling that you're able to sell a product or that it's bought from you? Because it's not the same. One thing is to be successful in convincing someone who didn't want to buy the product, and a very different thing is just to go to a meeting and have your product bought from you. So as you see, communication is an ally, and I would like to encourage you to consider communication as your travel companion for your companies to become more profitable. I would also like to tell you about two different courses of action. As you can see on the screen, the first one is a communication plan, and the second one is training and improving communication skills of all managers, of professionals. These are two different worlds. The communication plan is a strategy, but the capacity to communicate is something personal that is up to every single one of us. And I want to tell you very clearly, and quite frankly, communication can be trained. It's not about genetics. Luckily, communication is a skill that can be trained with techniques and with a will to learn and to improve. And it's very simple. If you have the adequate method, if you have appropriate training, it's relatively simple to improve. Allow me to give you two pieces of advice. Let's avoid improvising. This is very Spanish thing, improvising. If you work with Germans, you will realize that 90% of the things that German professionals do is not improvised. Us Spaniards are very flexible, are very capable of adapting to change, and we're just sitting back on our laurels, and we're just saying, I will just improvise, I'll say something. And what about the Christmas campaign? I don't know. I will talk about it for the last 2 minutes. I will come up with something. And for how long will you be speaking? I don't know. 3 minutes, 30 minutes, or maybe I just raise my glass to our company and leave the meeting. And how are you going to do this or that? Well, I'm going to congratulate them. I'm going to tell them they've done a good job. But I'm going to tell them that now is the time to really work hard because we need to increase our turnover. And I regret to tell you that this year we have not lived up to our plans and our expectations. And I want to tell Luis that he was guilty for the fact that we didn't win a tender. That's not how it works. I'm going to tell you what communicating efficiently means. It means programming the information you're going to tell. And everything we have not foreseen or prepared will be improvising. We all can improvise. But what I'm trying to tell you is that communicating efficiently is to express that which has been foreseen and prepared. Well, a communication plan is a sort of a roadmap. Here is a coast with a map, and you can see all the little geographic elements. You can see the lighthouses, you can see the depth of the seabed. This is what a communication plan should be. Setting a route, setting the road to follow over the year. So we need to plan our corporate communication from the very beginning, from a business point of view. And to do it, we should have some parameters and some factors. Is this communication plan going to be an internal plan to motivate our own teams to solve conflicts? Yes, but it should also be an external communication plan. That's why I asked how many of you have participated in a meeting or in interviews with the media. A communication plan should also be focused on things outside of the company. I'm sure that every single one of you has the talent, the capacity, and the experience to tell the public about many, many interesting things in cybersecurity. I am convinced that you can make your own contribution to raising awareness amongst companies to contract cybersecurity services and, above all, to contract your company. So creating a public opinion through conventional media is indeed one of the elements that needs to be considered in our communication plan. A communication plan is not the same as a marketing plan. We could sum it up by saying that a marketing plan uses a different language, and it's based on investing in order to have a space in the media, probably in formats such as, other advertising formats. But in our communication plan, we're focusing on managing the information that companies and their spokespersons use to have an influence on the public opinion. And the first element, of course, is the objective or objectives. Our objective could be to become a reputable player in the media, to become a spokesperson that's interesting to the media. That could be one objective, disseminating your services. If you have a very new or high technology. So we need to set the objectives. And then we want to set the statements, the messages that we want to convey. As you can see, there's little room for improvisation. We must describe and put down what we want to tell in an interview. We want to be able to foresee what the headline should be tomorrow morning on a newspaper. We have to bear in mind how we're going to do it. What actions are we going to take? For example, participating in such an interesting and relevant forum as this conference is, without the shadow of a doubt, a great opportunity. So we need to plan accordingly because our reputation, our brand is at stake. And I want to tell you about your personal brands. Each of us has a personal brand that's built up on the basis of our training, our knowledge, our values and principles. Let me tell you something. Our personal branding is built through our communication skills. The way we communicate ourselves will define our personal brand. We are what we communicate. That's why it's very important to also be aware of what communication actions we're going to take. Because as Marshall McLuhan said, the means or the medium is the message. So sometimes the fact of being present in a medium or not being present in a medium will already tell a lot about our companies. The fourth key element are the tools. Are we going to convene a press conference? If we convene a press conference for tomorrow morning, will we have media participating? Will we have the necessary network to bring those journalists to our press conference? Am I going to talk to a specific means of communication or a specific journalist? Through what channel am I going to do it? And we need to set the deadlines. We need to set the route, just like in that map that we have on the screen. So I need to be aware of what my objectives are for the first quarter of the year, what resources I'm going to allocate to my communication plans. And by resources, I don't mean only money, but also efforts, dedication, and very, very important, resources from our teams. So I encourage you to draw up a communication plan. Even if your company may have the capacity to hire an expert, typically a journalist, that would be very interesting, but you could also contract the services of external communication agencies. And remember, a marketing plan is not the same as a communication plan. I'm going to talk about social media for a minute. Now, we don't only need social media to communicate about our companies. We can also use social media to become opinion leaders, to spread our own personal brands, talk to people, and make people talk about you. If you're not present on social media, if you don't talk to people on social media, I'm sure that someone else will take your place and will be the leader. And I'm sure that this probably happened to many of us. You see someone who's speaking about something and you think, I'm an expert in this topic. How come that they didn't call me? Well, maybe they don't know that you're an expert in this area. So take advantage of social media. I would like to touch upon personal training, skills in communication. I was saying that communication can be trained, and we can see that whenever we travel to international conferences. Whenever someone steps onto the stage, I can tell you that without noticing it or without even wanting to do it, people will immediately draw a comparison with other people that they've seen on a stage. And this is how the market goes. And there is an opportunity to be brilliant. Remember the three principles: credibility, trust, and leadership. And you can train all of these. This diagram sums up the three fundamental pillars for someone to be an efficient public speaker. We've mentioned one of them already, which is to express what you've already planned. That's the main parameter of an efficient communication strategy. Secondly, efficient communication is also about helping the listener understand as much information as possible. Everything that we say, everything that we tell them that they don't understand is not effective and it's worthless. So whenever we're talking to a specialized journal, we can use that technical language. But if we go to a small enterprise or a large company that's not necessarily an expert in cybersecurity, we need to use the appropriate language for them to connect with us. We should always keep receivers in mind, the people who listen to us. In order for a speaker to be effective, content is the first thing, the way you organize content, the way you structure it. I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Always tell the important things at the beginning and not at the end, because at the beginning people are more willing to listen to you. It depends on at what time we're presenting our information, where, etc. But in general terms, say what's most important first and repeat it at the end. Effective communication is based on a principle of repetition. And it's fundamental that among everything that we have told the audience, there is one message that should be highlighted. In communication, less is more. Nonverbal communication and the voice are also very relevant. Perhaps we're more aware of nonverbal communication now. We pay more attention to it. Let me tell you something that Darwin discovered in 1875. Micro-expressions in the face represent the emotion of a human being universally. That means someone from León expresses happiness and emotions the same way that someone from Australia or Cadiz will express them. Facial micro-expressions are universal. This means that whenever you're speaking in public, everyone that's listening to you have the inherent capacity to interpret what your emotional state is. This is very serious. Because this means that anyone is going to be able to perceive your emotions as a speaker. Whenever you go visit a customer, you should also think about whether you're going to smile or not. I recommend that at least when you greet each other, try to smile. And our customer is also going to pay attention to our expressions as we talk to them. Whenever you talk to someone from your team, remember that you're also conveying communication through nonverbal communication. So it's very important. And then the voice, which is very often forgotten. I mean, how many times have we seen a conference or a talk where the first thing that the speaker does is politely cough into the microphone? Good morning. You can cough before you step closer to the microphone, can't you? Let me tell you something about the voice. The most important thing about the voice is the capacity to be silent. Voice is like music. It needs sounds and it needs silence. And during silence, there's no contamination by saying or well or okay, because those words are empty words. They're parasites of language. And it can be interpreted as a sign of insecurity and hesitation. Remember that whenever we're speaking, it's not only about what we want to convey, it's also about what our listeners, our audience, will interpret. So, communication is a tool to change the way you, your personal brand, and your companies are perceived. And that's why we need to know how to speak in public. So, as we were saying, content, nonverbal communication, and voice are the three main pillars of effective communication, and on top of these comes emotion. Emotion makes it all work. I'm going to give you 2 key points to use emotions properly. Consider the opportunity or the possibility of talking as an opportunity. Always recommend your partners and your teams to speak. I don't mean that they should necessarily give or spill all the information immediately. But remember, if you don't talk, someone else will talk for you. The more difficult a situation is, the more recommended it is to speak. Don't let that problem sit. Don't sweep it down the carpet. Talk to people. Try to know what's happened. Solve the conflict. Communication is a powerful ally. To finish with and stick to the time allocated to me, I would like to ask you all to stand up for a final exercise. I would like to take this advantage to congratulate the organization for having decided that speakers should have the opportunity to speak for a specified amount of time, 30 minutes. 30 minutes is a lifetime. If I would have been told that I was only allocated 5 minutes, I would have come all the same, because speaking is a great opportunity. And don't think that if we don't talk for 1 hour and a half, our communication would not be appropriate or effective. So I would like to propose an exercise to place ourselves and position ourselves properly when we're speaking in public. It's not the same to stand on a stage than to be protected by a table while you're sitting on a chair. So I would like to share with you this exercise, which might be useful. First recommendation: to speak in public on a stage or somewhere where you have to stand in front of an audience. Presentations will not be measured by how much you walk up and down the room. It won't mean anything if that we've traveled around the stage or the room for a total of 34 kilometers. My second recommendation is to place yourselves in the middle of the room or the stage. Now, our feet should be at the same distance as our shoulders. Let's avoid having one foot in front of our body and one foot behind us, because this might lead to an unwanted or undesired movement. The more a speaker moves, the less attention we will be paying to them. We must be reinforced and supported by the way we place ourselves and move ourselves, and we should be able to control the way we move. Now let's keep our heads held high, because this shows that we're leaders, that we're strong. And now let's see what to do with our hands. A lot of speakers will love to leave their hands back at home because they don't know how to use them. My proposal is to eliminate this. Don't hold your hands in your back, because this is worthless. Don't place your hands on the table or whatever is in front of you, because you're losing an opportunity to also send a message with your hands. If you cross your arms, we will not giving a feeling of openness, and somehow we will be preventing our diaphragm from making its contribution to public speaking. So my recommendation is the following. Hold your hands at the height of your belly button. Use your belly button and not the belly button of the person standing next to you, okay? Your own belly button. We can briefly touch it with our thumbnail, with our thumb. And with this, whenever we talk to someone, we are trying to place our hands naturally and move them in a natural way. Now let's move our right hand. Goes back to its place. We move our left hand, we bring it back to our belly button. We open both hands and bring them back. It's relatively simple. when to bring hands back to the center, whenever there's a pause. For example, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And we bring hands back. We reset attention. When do we move them again? Whenever I take the floor again. This is just a proposal. This is a gesture pattern. You need to develop your own gestures, your own patterns, following a series of keys, a series of recommendations. But my proposal is that in order to structure information, hands should be in harmony and go back to their natural or initial place. I'm going to show you a text on the screen for a final exercise. Communication, opportunity, leadership, professional success. Let's practice this statement. Communication is an ability that provides professional success. So on the count to 3, we will try to say this text out loud, and after saying leadership, clap twice so that there's a silence, so that you breathe in through your mouth, and so that you can say the words professional success more loudly. Communication, opportunity, leadership. 1, 2. Professional success. And hands go back to your place. Let's try it. 1, 2, and 3.
Silencio.
1, 2, 3. Great. Let's do it as if we really wanted to do it. A little bit more of energy and strength. Imagine you're standing on a stage. Your energy needs to come through, remember, emotions, leadership, trust. Speaking in public is a good opportunity. That's what I have to tell myself. 1, 2, 3. Silence. 1, 2. There you go. Now the last one. And please smile. Let's show ourselves that we're able to smile. Remember, what we communicate is what we are. So let's try again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, go. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Gracias.